All right. Thanks for joining us today. We are live with Dr. Hall, and we are going to be continuing our leadership development conversations, specifically in how to uh, most quickly develop and hold on to a trusted advisor type of position, why you would want to do that, what kind of conditions does it create, the things to think about. What we want to accomplish as best we can is almost giving your client the impression that you're reading their mind, because I think that really creates some of the best um, sets the best stage for you being an understanding, agent, being that trusted advisor that's really in tune with what they're trying to accomplish, the pace that they have, the issues that they're going to experience, the emotions that they have. So we're going to talk all about that today with Dr. Hall. So with that, we'll bring on Dr. Hall and introduce him real quick. He's a business psychologist, an executive coach, a multi-time author, and a public speaker, and knows how to help get the rubber to the road, as they say, and actually applying the things that you teach, understanding the biology of how our brains work, and helping us introduce things that we can execute on and actually begin to perform at a higher level. How are you doing today, Dr. Hall?
I am well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of interested in seeing how this one plays out. I know this one's going to have a slightly different twist to it, but because we're introducing some examples, specific real estate examples of how we can do this, and I'd love to get your feedback as kind of one, just kind of your perspective on how I go about my real estate business, and then from the psychology perspective, how people can hopefully benefit, and even maybe some constructive criticism. So, thanks.
Very good.
Awesome. Well, let's do just a couple of small housekeeping items here, real quick. For those of you that I haven't met before, my name is, or yet, my name is Jerod Lee. I'm the associate broker and team lead here at My Home Connection, also known as MHC Realty. Our sponsor for today is a perfect real estate business. We're really trying to reinvent real estate in large part now working with Dr. Hall, introducing things like business coaching, life coaching, training, mentoring, and some tried and true things that real estate agents should have in their business, and even introducing some new things. So if you have any questions, we'd welcome an opportunity to chat with you. We have a free no obligation exploration call that we'd love to extend to you. So if you'd like to learn more, we'd love to chat. So with that, let's bring Dr. Hall on. And really, what I was hoping we'd do today is get into the nitty gritty of what you and others refer to as a resident leader. I think this is an extension of that. Do you kind of mind just sharing with the audience what that means? I know we've talked about it a little bit in the past, but
Yeah, yeah.
revisit that.
The reminder will be good. A resident leader is a person who is able to successfully monitor and manage the thoughts and emotions of other people. And the best example I have of resonance is a swing set. And we've used this example before, but if you're on a swing and somebody's pushing you, if they push you at the right time, you'll swing higher. If they push, and they're in the same sequence or frequency as the swing, and then you are resonant and you work well together. A dissonant swing set pusher
Yeah.
will push at the wrong time and slow you down or make you crash. And so that's getting in the same sequence or rhythm or frequency. And leaders and human beings operate in the same way. There's a concept called entrainment with large groups of people where everyone operates in the same frequency or rhythm. And we see that in marching bands or groups that are moving and working together in the same way. And leaders, exceptional leaders, are ones that can match your frequency. And that's vague language, but I'll try to be more specific. But they can match the emotional tone that you're in,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're successfully able to draw you to a different, better emotional place.
Yeah, and I like that kind of analogy because it could be any manner of that spectrum, right? From the person that just stops you cold and jars you out of the swing, to somebody that just you don't quite feel like they're helping you as much as they could or should. There's just
Right.
some friction that's happening and you can't maybe identify it to the
Right.
person that you're just like, man, they were with me lockstep and just really were in sync with where I was at.
Yes.
And the more that you're in sync, I think people really, well, let me go to this slide that I have here. Really, why are we doing this, right? We've talked about this in other episodes, and that's, what we want to coach and teach to in the perfect real estate business is repeat and referral business. There just is no better business because you know these folks, generally speaking, even if it's referral, the people that referred them, and they're probably similar folk. And rather than what we see a lot these days is people paying for leads, or you're going out there and you're, rubbing shoulders, pressing palms, and you're trying to develop, a groove with them where, hopefully you've already done this with somebody and you're helping them again, or they're referring to other people that you kind of understand that what do you call that resonance or that frequency?
Yeah, the resonance, and if you don't have a bunch of customers, what you're doing whenever you go to a network meeting is trying to build that resonance with other people so that they feel a certain way around you, that they like you, they respect you, and that they trust you.
Yeah.
And those are important pieces of becoming that trusted advisor.
Yeah. Hopefully this isn't a long example, and hopefully it's relevant here. But one of the things that I always kind of wondered, what's the good and what's the bad of moving around so much? Because my dad was Navy, so we moved every 3 years. But what I couldn't help but figure out is, because I'm moving across the country, I'm moving international. I mean, I'm moving, almost, different cultures to large extremes. Internationally would be probably one of the biggest examples, because language is different. Truly culture is different. But anyway, my point is, you gotta match that group. If you just come in and all of a sudden you're that bull in the china shop and you're stopping people mid swing, you're not gonna you fit in very well.
Yeah.
Anyway, is that a good example?
I think it's a great example. If anybody's ever been in a cross-cultural situation, and I've lived overseas and gone to school overseas and traveled overseas, if you don't study the culture you're in or the environment you're in, you can make a lot of mistakes. And so one of the things that resonant leaders do is they're very aware that everybody's different. And so if you make the assumption that, I know this town, I know these people, it's all going to be the same. Well, there's an almost infinite variety of people. And so studying each individual and each individual family, it really requires curiosity and listening and observing before you step out and start acting like you're the expert. And you may be the expert, but you're not the expert on them. Right. And so it really requires some humility as you meet these new people that, okay, I'm walking into a new culture, and so I better learn how this works. One of the things that you can do is begin to study the different kinds of people. And there are lots of different personality frameworks that might help you with that. But essentially being able to more accurately classify people. Once you're able to classify people, even if it's a rudimentary classification, you can begin to make some predictions. The downside of that is people become overconfident in the classification system and think it rules the world, and that 4 different personality types or 16 or 9 describes everybody perfectly. No, right. It's a thumbnail. So you can become arrogant and make mistakes at a different level, but it's important to study and learn who you're working with.
Yeah, and I like the focus on making sure that you're not making assumptions. You're always kind of revisiting that and making sure you're in lockstep, right? Because you could get a couple of good pushes and feel like you're in sync, and then all of a sudden you looked away for some reason, or you weren't paying close enough attention, and now it was just slightly jarring. So anyway, I'm going to extend the analogy here, but But what I was kind of getting at is once you've kind of met, some clients that hopefully have become friends that you're going to, work with later, you figured out that resonance with them, that frequency with them, that flow with them, whatever you want to call it. You've got into that groove. And likely the people they refer to you are, I would guess, fairly similar, but
Well,
not in all cases.
they may have different personalities, but they may have some overlapping values. People tend to be attracted to people who are both similar to them in personality, but if not similar in personality, at least similar enough in some values. So your referral sources act kind of as a filter that you're going to have people who are more like them, not exactly like them, but more like them.
Yeah. So you're not kind of restarting from scratch, right? Obviously, if you buy a lead or you go to a chamber
Yeah.
of commerce or something, you don't know, right? I mean, you're starting from scratch. You don't have that
Right.
filter you were talking about. So,
Right.
this is why we're talking about this, right? So let me go back to this slide here. All of this is for repeat and referral business. Everything we talk about is for you to work with like-minded folks that you like to work with, that you didn't spend a whole lot of time or money having them become clients, because that can, time is money, and certainly money's money. And if you just develop those relationships, they kind of come that way. But let's segue to what some specific things are, and then we'll give examples later. But becoming a trusted advisor puts you in that position of what it sounds like trust, that hey, this person knows what they're doing. You've built a great rapport, and they're like, I'm going to give them the latitude of trusting them to do their job, versus, hey, if you're not doing these things, they're always questioning you. They're wanting to do it a different way or whatever. So you better build a sense of confidence in them sooner than later.
Yeah, yeah, and that goes back to a person's sort of baseline level of anxiety about the process. And in buying and selling a home, it's a high stakes transaction, and so there is a lot of anxiety about that. And the more anxiety people have that they can't control, the more they seek information. And if they trust you, that you have given them good information, you've taken care of them in the past, they will be they will ask fewer questions than if they're not afraid. Trusting another person, well, let me use a different example, and this, you'll find out why this comes from my ancient history. But if you go to get your hair cut with a new person who's cutting your hair, you
You're
never
on
work
edge.
with them. You're totally on edge, and you give lots of directions, and you tell exactly how you want it. But once you trust that they're not going to screw up your hair, then you don't have as many questions. You don't have to say as much. And so, if as a real estate professional, you're the brand new barber every time,
Yeah.
until they've used you, or until then they refer somebody, and then there'll be fewer questions and less anxiety. And the longer you work with them and shepherd them through this process, the less anxiety they'll have.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And and that's all through the process, right? It's like, man, if you're an agent and you're getting a ton of questions and really minute, detailed questions, you gotta wonder if they trust you.
Well, is it that you haven't indicated that you're trustworthy, or do they have a very high level of anxiety, just
and
just
distrust.
baseline level of anxiety?
Yeah.
And so that's part of the variation of people, and understanding that, and then learning, okay, how do I attenuate that? How do I help that person calm down? And human beings are remarkable at the ability to change another person's emotional state by their tone of voice, by the content of their words, by their very presence. So there are lots of things that you can do as a real estate professional to help people become soothed.
Yeah, yeah. This will be an interesting example, and hopefully I word it correctly. But there's obviously comes a lot of documents, can come very quickly, and these are contracts, right? Whether it's
Yep.
a buyer's rep agreement or a list, seller's agreement, listing agreement. but these are legal documents, and it's interesting. Sometimes you'll even get somebody to sign them so fast, you're like, man, I really wish you just put on pause. I appreciate the level of trust you have in me here, but I know you didn't read anywhere the amount that you should have on that contract, and there's a large amount of trust there. Anyway, I don't know if that's a good example, but for other people that are distrusting or have high anxiety, or you haven't had the opportunity to build the trust yet, the what I'm talking about is the time you send them the contract to the time they get it back in a digital world. If it's in seconds, you know that they just signed it, and there's probably high degree of trust, or they don't care. I don't know. Maybe there's some of that.
Well, I think, or it could be that they're so overwhelmed they've just resigned themselves to the outcome. And so for a person who responds very quickly, it might be really useful for you to go, boy, you got that back to me quick. I appreciate your level of confidence. Let me go over some of the things, some of the highlights with you.
Yeah.
And for some people that will instill a greater degree of confidence. Or if a person tends to rush through before they sign it, say, here are the basic points of this document.
Yep.
The contrary is the person who reads every word.
Yep.
One of my best friends is in the mortgage business, and he had been using these standard bank documents for, I think, somewhere between 5 and 10 years. And one woman came back and found 3 typos. And he said, I've done thousands of deals, and no one's ever found these 3 typos.
Yeah.
Well, she was one of those people who had the way she managed her anxiety was to read every word very carefully.
To give her confidence what she was doing and kind of soothe that, I think you've said in the past.
Yeah. I mean, and for her, that was the way she managed it. That she found 3 typos. She said, I'm a little disappointed. How careful can these documents be if there are 3 typos?
Said, and you've been using them for a better part of a decade.
Yeah, none of them have ever gone wrong. So
Right. Yeah, no, I love that. And your example is one that I've really embraced in my time is, hey, I am going to send you some documents, and then I'm trying to think, because this just came to mind, but I'm trying to remember kind of where it would best fit in our examples here, but I'll just toss it out there and I'll come back to it later. But if I'm going to send this to you, and these are Idaho state forms, it's like, I didn't make this up. This isn't, these aren't my documents. These are what the Idaho Real Estate Commission does, or whomever does. And these have been used
if you're not in Idaho, whatever state you're in.
Right. So a sense of, oh, okay, these aren't just coming out of nowhere. These have been reviewed. And then, like you said, the highlights, this is what you're going to see. This is what it's about. And obviously, sometimes you're just sitting in a conference room or an office with somebody and you're going through them. But sometimes you're not. You're on the phone. I'm going to send this your way. And so you talk about the highlights. And then I give them an opportunity to address questions or concerns any way they want. Like some people I'll say, hey, if you want me to print these out, go meet you in the office and we'll talk through them, line by line. I'm open to that. Some people like me to send them their way. They like to review them. They like to jot down questions. We'll get on the phone later. Or sometimes we'll go through them simultaneously. What would you like to do? And that gives me a really good gauge of, man, if this person's a reader and they're going to want answers to the questions and we need to be face to face, hey, that's okay.
Right.
Right.
But Jerod, you're experienced enough to know that different people are going to respond different ways. That's part of empathy, which is not soft kidding somebody, they're there, it'll all be okay. Empathy really is the ability to accurately imagine or guess what another person is thinking or they're feeling. That's what empathy, in the way I'm using it, means.
Yeah.
Are you able to make that guess, that quote mind reading?
Yeah, and that's what I really want our listeners, our viewers, to understand is this is a relationship, and I probably sound like a broken record, but I see way too many people treating it as a transaction, and it just doesn't work because everybody's got a different level of need for hand-holding, for questions being answered, for that level of empathy. Some people, like, sometimes I'll tell people if I think they're a D personality, which is on a disc profile, insert, profile, questionnaire here, but let's just use D as an example. They're very direct. They're very driven.
Hmm.
I'll almost apologize sometimes like, hey, I will talk a lot because I want to answer all your questions. So almost apologizing up front because I sense that they might be that personality, but then I can adjust accordingly. Like some will say, thank you. And others might say, no, that's okay. I want to know. And then I've got permission either way.
Right. Right.
So, be empathetic at a personal level for each individual, not here's how it goes for everybody.
Which requires that you study the people that you're working with. And I may be getting ahead of ourselves here, but people who are great at their profession, not just good at their profession, they document. They write down what they've learned. They work on classifying. They work on scripts. They work on best practices. They remind themselves, okay, that turn of a phrase worked better than that other turn of a phrase with this type of person, and they document it. And you're not documenting it for anybody but yourself.
Yeah.
You're essentially keeping a record of training. If you're a hunter or a fisher, you write down, okay, this lure on this date with this weather. If you're fishing, if you're hunting, it's like, okay, this is where they're going to be. This is the way the wind was blowing.
Mm-hmm.
This is what the temperature was. So you keep record of this.
Yeah.
In hunting, there's a thing called a dope book, which is, I think it stands for data observed from previous experience.
Okay.
And so you record what you did.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Huh. Yeah. Take it to that next level, journal it or document it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That makes sense. So I think we've spent a fair bit of time kind of revisiting resident leader and then kind of the benefits. I'll go back to that just real quickly, but obviously, the end goal is we want that repeat and referral business, and we have to create not only a pleasant experience, but what I want to get across is people don't refer you to mediocre people, or people don't refer other people they know and love to mediocre services, right? In my opinion, you have to far exceed their expectations before they're ready to give you their name.
I heard the phrase customer delight.
There you go.
I mean, they have to be delighted. They have to go, oh my gosh, this was really stellar experience.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they go, yeah, he or she they were okay. You might want to look around and find out who's a good fit for you. That's not what you want. You want, oh my gosh, this person over the top, awesome.
Customer delight. Yeah. If I got to press you on giving me the name of the person you used because they're concerned about if they don't take good care of you, that it reflects poorly on them, you didn't accomplish your goal. Versus, man, I really want to give you this person's name because I was impressed. I was blown away.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a book called Raving Fans, which is about how do you create that customer delight in people so that they become your raving fans and they essentially evangelize for you.
Yeah, I'd do a restaurant, do a hotel, right? I mean, like I'd go there if it was convenient and I didn't want to go out of my way. And then there's, man, I'm going to go out of my way because that was great food and I'm going to tell everybody that I know about it. You know?
And so part of what people are looking for is that they have very low anxiety in the transaction, that they have very high comfort, and there's no problem-free transaction. There's in any high stakes situation, it's never problem-free, but that there's a plan to solve the problem, and in the end, even if there were problems, they were resolved to your client's satisfaction in such a way that they go, man, this went really well.
Yeah. And this line item here, I'm glad I didn't switch the slide just yet, but anticipating and addressing problems or fears, because like you said, there's a lot that goes on in a real estate transaction, and to think that there's not going to be a hiccup or a bump somewhere along the way, I don't care who you are, there'll be a twist, there'll be a, kind of that, oh, let's take care of this, and it might be, easily overcome, or this might be, hey, we got to have a conversation.
Yeah, and I think really great professionals don't promise that it'll be problem free.
Right.
Because if you promise that it'll be problem free and they have that expectation, that's just a wrong expectation. And then you will come across as not a credible person, somebody
Right.
that they don't trust. I work with a lot of financial planners, and several of them have this little talk with their clients that in any given 10 years, 3 will be worse than you like, 4 will be about where you like,
Mm-hmm.
and 3 will be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, you're never going to call me when they're awesome or about where you like. You're going to call me in those 3 years. And people will call and they'll say, I got to get out of the market. The sky is falling. And he goes, how many years out of 10 are going to be like this? They go 3. And he goes, and this is one of them.
Yeah.
And then he's inoculated them against
Yep.
that worry. Oh, that's right. That's what I signed on for. That's my expectation. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Yeah. I mean, if hopefully you at least are empathetic about what the questions might come up, and hopefully you've got enough experience in the industry to anticipate, like, oh, yep, heard that one before. So a couple examples I have here are like a good example in Idaho, specifically in our market, is setting expectations. The state of the market, we've had just traditionally low inventory because we don't have, well, we do now have some large national builders, but we haven't had builders that have been able to keep up with the pace of people coming into our market. So when people have this laundry list of homes that they want, attributes that they want on a home, helping them understand that, hey, just so you know, our inventory's low.
Yeah.
I'd love to have you nail all 10 of those priorities or whatever they are, but you don't want to discourage them right out of the gate. So that's not what I'm saying. But at some point, say, hey, as you're looking around, because ultimately, as any agent is going to either knows or is going to know, those priorities are going to shift, and some are just going to come off the list.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to set the expectation, they're like, oh, that's what Jerod was talking about.
Yes.
Because I kind of knew as they were rattling them off, I'm like, oh, man, that's not going to happen, or that's going to be rough.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great wish list, and it doesn't fit with reality.
Yeah, and
at least in this market.
yeah, and in buyer's defense, that's almost always the case. We always kind of want, when I go buy a car, I want all the bells and whistles at a great price, right? And then I adjust to the reality of what's out there, and that's what happens here. So to kind of set, just by virtue of the inventory being low, there's an understanding that, hey, that list we talked about, we're going to have to start flexing.
Right.
So you didn't even have to have the conversation. You just set expectations of the market, and they're already adjusting themselves instead of, I kind of hate to say it that way, but I want to address this question head on is, why doesn't my real estate agent listen to me? Like, that's number one. I've gotten a lot of clients that have, fired agents because they said that their agent didn't listen to them. And, some cases that's true, but in other cases, like, well, what they didn't tell you is right up front that you had a very long list of things that you wanted, and that just wasn't going to happen. And
and you may lose them at the very beginning if they think you're the person who's preventing them from having their ideal utopian outcome.
yeah,
You may as well be done quick,
yeah,
rather than spend a lot of time and have them disappointed later. So setting expectations early is a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. And then, as you go through, it's like, okay, some things got to either come off the list or get reprioritized to someplace else. So your setting expectations are going to accomplish a lot. They're like, wow,
Yep.
Nailed it. Knew I'm not seeing a lot. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then, by the way, do you want to keep leaning into it or not? If you got to have all 10 of those and you're not seeing it now, maybe we're a year, 2, 3 out, whatever. And that's okay too.
Yeah. I mean, if you want the ideal situation, you have to be willing to wait. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And I've got an agent on my team. He's that very thing. These folks are like, I get it, not a lot of inventory, but very, very specific needs and wants, and they've got no reason to rush it.
Yeah. So they can wait.
Right. Yep, exactly. Let's see. So, I guess we already kind of talked about anticipating questions, but the one example I like to use is fairly early on. Um, as folks, as you're showing them homes, they're going to start to go, "Whew, man, what's this thing going to cost me?" Like, that's going through their head. Oh, HOA fees, homeowners insurance, you know, uh, special, irrigation, costs or whatever it is. And they're
Whatever
just,
it is, yeah.
yeah, they're just getting overwhelmed with, putting this all together. So I will quite often say, hey, even if this isn't the home, how about I provide this address to the lender so that they can put the numbers together and put an all-in amount? And that just
Yeah.
eliminates so much. It either, makes them feel comfortable that we're looking in the right area. Like, oof, man, I was, to use one of my grandma's expressions, I was up in the night. Like this was never, this was never going to happen. So that all-in cost, helps recalibrate things. And they're like, oh, okay, I'm on track, or whew, let's go down that path.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to look for something different based on our budget. Right.
Yep. Yep.
And there are so many moving parts and there are so many add-on costs. And if people are not from this market, they don't know what some of those add-on costs are. And if you work with the lender to help create, okay, this is what your, essentially your out the door pricing is going to be, that's really helpful.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I'll put in a little plug here for local lenders because a lot of folks, they'll come to you with a lender in tow. And sometimes it's a lender that you're just like, oh my goodness, this is going to be difficult because they're very transaction oriented, high volume, and they're just getting a good deal. But for me to ask them, hey, can you run these calculations on this address? And sometimes it's 2, 3, 4, whatever, because you've kind of changed up the area town is in, so the taxes are different, or you want a nicer, or you want a community with nicer amenities, so your HOAs go up. And anyway, and so I'm just saying, when I have a good relationship with the lender, I'll just throw them addresses and say, hey, get us a number, so we can either continue down that path or move on to the next. So.
Yeah, and if people are moving in from out of state, some states don't have the history of HOAs, so it's not really part of somebody's formula. They don't know what CC&Rs are. They don't understand HOAs. So part of your job for people, especially who are out of state or first time buyers, is to teach them about these things.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they're obnoxiously high and they're thinking, oh my goodness, I can't afford that because they're going to be, probably in some cases 2x, 3x what we charge here. It's like, no, let's get you all the numbers. Let's break it down and you see what's going on. And they're like, or irrigation. They're like, oh, I got to water my lawn. It's a big lawn. And we have, irrigation through the canals here. That's very very, I'll call it cheap. It's very, very inexpensive. You only water your lawn with it. You don't wash your car. You don't, do anything like that. But it's not, city water that could create a high water bill. Anyway, so get ahead of those things. Get those numbers up front. And I think your clients will be very impressed. Again, they kind of feel like, oh, he or she's reading my mind. They're getting
right. And part of that comes from experience, but part of it comes from imagining in your own mind, what would I like to know? If I was this kind of person, what would I like to know? And that's empathy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate you saying that, because I was going to try to factor in a slide, like, putting yourself in your client's shoes, but I couldn't quite figure out how to address it. Yes, it's captured as empathy, but really that's what you're doing. If I'm that couple with their kids and their pets and that boat, what am I looking for?
What's gonna be the right thing, and it requires the ability for you to imagine yourself as another person, and that's an advanced skill. Not everybody can do that. They can only think, what would I like?
Yeah. Yeah. And can you go, if you don't mind, go into resident leader just a little bit more, because it's setting aside what you think and what you feel or what you're concerned about to do all that. And just the process real quick, the quadrants that you kind of go through.
Yeah. So this is based on Daniel Goleman's work on emotional intelligence. So if you were to draw a 2x2 quadrant, it's monitor and manage self and others. And so you monitor yourself, that's self-awareness. You manage yourself, that's self-control. You monitor other people's thoughts and emotions. That's empathy. And then you manage those thoughts and emotions. That's resonance or influence. And you really can't be great at monitoring and managing the thoughts and emotions of other people until you've first done the work on yourself,
Right.
because you kind of get in your own way.
Yeah.
So really great, great leaders, people who have influence, have really done the work on themselves first, and then are able to then study the other people. That's the empathy part, to imagine how that other person might be thinking or feeling. But then it's always important, you're guessing. You always got to check it out.
Yep.
Ask,
Yep.
hey, I was kind of thinking about this, imagining, am I in the ballpark? And then they'll help you fine tune, and that will increase your own mental model.
Yeah.
And so what you're effectively doing is you're creating in your mind this model of the different types of buyers in the real estate world.
Yeah.
In my business, we call it prototype modeling. And the example I would use is, we all know what a dog looks like. Well, if you're from outer space and you show somebody a Chihuahua and a Great Dane, they go, well, those can't be the same thing. We all go, well, of course they are the same thing. Well, that's because we have all of these different examples in our prototype. We know what doggishness is because we've seen so many. But if we've only seen one, then anything different than that one can't be the same thing.
Yeah.
And so part of what you do as you develop your expertise with people is you start to build larger and larger, more complete models of what people are like.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. I think the most recent, and I want to word this in a way that it comes across well, but one of my most recent transactions was a single mom. And I could only imagine, I mean, obviously I've never been a single mom, but the heightened anxiety that can come along with that, and maybe the potential opportunity or not to talk with somebody at a level that helps you. I'm not trying to be like a surrogate boyfriend or husband or anything like that, but I can appreciate the fact that there might have to be some more detailed answers to questions, or some longer conversations, because you don't have an immediate close significant other. Anyway,
to bounce ideas off.
I don't want it to sound weird or whatever, but what's that?
No, it isn't weird. So if if your client doesn't have another person to bounce ideas off of, or someone else to talk to about their anxieties, then you're the only person. So you step up.
Yeah.
And I don't think. I mean, you could certainly make it weird, but I don't think it has to be weird.
Right.
that you provide that feedback for the person to help them identify what they're thinking. Some people are external processors. They don't know what they think until they say it out loud. And so you may be the recipient of that, so that they're able then to have a better understanding of what they want or what they think.
Yeah, and actually I would do two things. One, take it as an honor that they're willing to communicate this with you. And two, really, if they're not asking you the question, then they might ask the uncle the question, or they might ask, somebody else. And, as good-hearted or as well-intentioned as some of those resources are, they just, I will tell them, hey,
they don't know what they're talking about.
Thank you for saying that. I didn't want to say that, but and it's not that I'm being mean to them, but okay, you bought a house 5 or 10 years ago, and it's not that you didn't know what you were doing. You don't know what you're doing, but the landscape's changed a lot. Contracts are different, sellers are, or whatever it might be. So if you are going to go get that information or have those conversations with others, at least please come back to me to verify, or confirm that this is all. But if they're coming to you directly and you've earned their trust that you can give them the answers, right? And some people will be like, oh, hey, you're a salesperson, so I got to go find out from somebody else. Well, that's fine. I'm not I don't consider myself a salesperson, but if you've got to do that, but at least come back to me to verify that that is the truth, because sometimes it's not. I've heard, people say, oh, I heard this. Like, no, that hasn't been a thing for, years or whatever. So.
Well, and that's what makes you an expert, is that you have content knowledge that's both complete and current. And my assumption is that if you're in the real estate business, you've done many transactions, maybe up to hundreds. Most adults have probably done 3 or 4 house transactions in their entire life. Maybe some maybe just 1 or 2. Mm-hmm. And so if you ask somebody that, if you ask the neighbor at the water cooler or your coworker at the water cooler, right, they're operating not out of bad will, they're just operating out of ignorance. They just don't know. And right, when I say ignorant, I really mean it in the original term. It's not a pejorative. Right. To be ignorant means you just don't know.
You still know. Yeah, it's not a bad term, not a pejorative, like you said. It's just the truth. You don't know.
Yeah.
And your agent should know, and or at least go figure out who to talk to know sooner than later from the right people. So,
right.
Yeah, let's talk about, kind of planting seeds. And these are all similar. What you're doing is you're getting ahead of all this. You're like you said, mm-hmm, being empathetic of where your clients are at, whether they're buyer, seller, what have you. But also, kind of the pace of the market. The other thing we've struggled with here in our market is sometimes it just clips right along. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, this is a treadmill and it's cruising. We're at 50, 60, 100 miles an hour. And, unless you've built up, I always say I try to earn the trusted advisor role. I earn your confidence. I earn the right to ask you a question. And, the last thing that somebody, if they perceive you as a salesperson, is you saying, hey, our market's moving really fast. You're going to want to put in offers immediately. No. You're going to want to earn that one, and you're going to want to show evidence of, if they're not seeing it already, right? If they're on the, the Zillows of the world, they're on the Redfins of the world, or hopefully on the myhomeconnection.coms of the world, you're going to see that homes aren't sticking around for very long, and they kind of already know. Or you take them out to see a home, and there's somebody on your heels, or you're on somebody else's heels of viewing the house, right?
Yeah.
Planting the seeds to say, at some point, hey, if you really do fall in love with that house, and we've done all the right things, and we've got your lender queued up with the pre-qual letter that we feel highly confident in, I'm not rushing you, but man, just plant the seed that these things are moving very fast. And, right, if you want it, jump on it type thing. So anyway,
jump on it.
Yeah. I don't know if I quite phrased that one right. we're not talking about manipulating anybody here or anything like that.
Well, manipulation presumes bad intent for the other person. And if you're telling the person the truth, and your motive is to help them, mm-hmm, then I would say it's not manipulation. It's telling them the truth based on evidence, and the desire is to persuade them.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And then the other is kind of prepared answers. And one of the best examples I could think of is, if you're a first-time home buyer and you're you're helping a first-time home buyer, and they're looking at it and they get all excited, right? You can't help it, especially if it's a new construction home or something like that. And then reality starts setting in. What about the roof? What about the furnace? What about the AC? And then so it can come from, excitement to, anxiety, at the flick of a switch. So my example here is, sooner than later, address the fact that you will have an opportunity. Yes, if you put an offer in, that can be anxiety provoking, but also be aware that in our due diligence period, we're going to have an opportunity to do a full, thorough inspection with very talented individuals that are going to scour it from top to bottom, give us a report, and we're going to go through that and, see if we even want to move forward, how we want to move forward. Is it stuff, that we're going to ask the seller to fix, or are they going to ask for a credit at closing because of issues, or, reduced price, or any manner of things, so they don't have to feel like, I got really excited about this home, but now I'm super anxious and don't want to put in the offer because I don't know what that means.
Right, right, and helping them recognize whatever speed bump comes along, we've got a plan for handling it.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and it this is whatever happens, there is a way we can handle it to protect you.
Yeah. 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 Because if they have doubt, they're not going to move forward.
Correct.
If they don't have trust, they're going to struggle to move forward. I don't know if I quite
Right.
worded that
And
right, but that's
well, and the trust can't just be all that you're just a great guy. It has to be trust that you have given them good information and you continue to give them good information, and that you have shown that, okay, whatever problems we face, we can resolve.
yeah. And I think it goes to the extent of I can trust that you have my best interest, not just trust that you know what you're doing, that you're an expert, that I've got outs, but I always tell my agents, this is not about a paycheck. Ever. And if for some odd reason it becomes about the paycheck, if your clients sense that, good luck.
Well,
Because
that opens up a broader observation I've made, is that the really successful people I know, money is secondary to the love of what they're doing and the purpose behind what they're doing. And yeah, you got to make money, but if all you want to do is make money, then you don't become excellent at you really don't become a first-class performer.
yeah, yeah, I love it. I love it. So hopefully here, and I definitely want to make sure our listeners, viewers know how to get in touch with you and know where your resources are at. But really, I wanted to take a deeper dive into, how we can become even better resonant leaders. So I appreciate you kind of rewinding a little bit. We've got episodes
Yeah,
that
sure.
describe that in great, great detail. But I think these are the things, specific examples as a real estate agent that you could do to really wow them so that you can earn that repeat and referral business. Because that's what we want for you, right? We don't ever want in long term, mid to long term, ever to have to make outbound calls to get business. We want you to be taking calls for somebody that's provided an honor, honored you with giving you a name.
Right.
So that's our goal. And I think these things go a long way in accomplishing that.
Yeah, we've talked about strategic level before. This is a far more tactical episode, which is great.
Yeah, thank you. There you go. Yeah, right. What do I do at a high level, 30,000 foot view? Now I'm in the trenches, man. I got my my weapon.
What I got to do here? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I love it. Well, if you don't mind telling the audience how to get in touch with you and where your resources are, that'd be great.
Yeah, you can reach me at my website, drrogerhall.com, drrogerhall.com. You can follow me on social media at Dr. Roger Hall, and that's spelled out DOCTOR, Roger Hall. You can look at my website, get my books, Staying Happy, Being Productive, DIY Brain, and Expedition. Those are all available there or on Amazon. And I've got another book in the hopper called DIY Leader Brain.
Awesome.
There we go. And I have online courses that are available. I've got one called Freak Out, which is about managing anxiety, and then another one about to come online, which is the online version of Expedition.
Love it. Oh, let me go back to here. So we covered a lot of ground today. If you have any questions or want to take advantage of that exploratory call, one of our most recent episodes, we went through what does consulting look like, what does mentoring look like, what does coaching look like, training, and just kind of broke it all down. So we offered up, free of charge. Again, no obligation, to just have that conversation. Where are you at in your real estate journey? How can we help you? If you get excited about what we're talking about and how it is that you can best help your clients, be a resonant leader, rise to that trusted advisor role, and to get that repeat and referral business, man, that's I don't know. I hope you can tell that's what I get excited about. So please feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Jerod.
Thank you very, very much for your time, Dr. Hall. We appreciate it. Otherwise, we wish everybody a blessed one. Thanks.